Jae-hoon wiped the sweat from his forehead as he trudged through the thick Amazon rainforest. The air was heavy and humid, filled with the sounds of chirping birds and buzzing insects. Jae-hoon was a zoologist, but not like the others. He had wild ideas and strange ways of doing things that made his colleagues shake their heads. Today, Jae-hoon was tracking a rare species of monkey. He carried a small backpack filled with his tools, a notebook, a camera, and some snacks. As he pushed through a dense patch of leaves, he stumbled into a small clearing. "Wow," he whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. In the middle of the clearing stood a shimmering, see-through bubble. It was as tall as 3 men and just as wide. Jae-hoon had never seen anything like it before. He took a step closer, his curiosity getting the better of him. Suddenly, a bright light flashed from above. Jae-hoon looked up, shielding his eyes. A massive shape blocked out the sky. It was round and flat, like a giant silver coin floating in the air. A flying saucer. Jae-hoon gasped, hardly believing his own words. Before he could react, a beam of blue light shot down from the ship. It surrounded Jae-hoon, lifting him off the ground. He yelled and waved his arms, but he couldn't break free. In seconds, he was pulled up into the ship, leaving behind only his dropped backpack as proof he was ever there. Inside the ship, everything was bright and clean. The walls glowed with a soft white light. Jae-hoon found himself in a small room with no doors or windows. His heart raced as he spun around, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Hello," he called out. "Is anyone there?" A section of the wall slid open, and 2 creatures walked in. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. They wore shiny silver suits that seemed to move like water. Jae-hoon's mouth fell open in shock. The aliens looked at each other, then back at Jae-hoon. One of them held up a small device and waved it over him. It made a soft beeping noise. "Interesting," the alien said in a high-pitched voice. "This one seems more aware than the others." Jae-hoon blinked in surprise. You can speak Korean." The alien tilted its head. "We are not speaking your language. Our universal translator allows us to understand each other." "Who are you?" Jae-hoon asked, his voice shaking a little. "What do you want with me?" The second alien stepped forward. "We are Sixnarians. We collect and study life forms from across the universe. You are our newest specimen." Jae-hoon's eyes widened. "Specimen? You mean I'm going to be part of some kind of alien zoo?" The first alien nodded. "Precisely. We have been observing your planet for some time. Humans are fascinating creatures. We wish to learn more about you." Before Jae-hoon could protest, the aliens raised their hands. A soft mist filled the room, making Jae-hoon feel dizzy and sleepy. As he slumped to the floor, he heard the aliens talking. "Prepare him for transport to the primate exhibit. Ensure he is comfortable but secure." When Jae-hoon woke up, he was in a completely different place. He was lying on soft grass, surrounded by trees and bushes. For a moment, he thought he was back in the Amazon. But then he saw the shimmering force field that enclosed the area, stretching high above the tallest trees. He sat up slowly, his head still fuzzy from the alien mist. As his vision cleared, he noticed other animals around him. There were monkeys swinging in the trees, a family of gorillas lounging in the shade, and even a group of lemurs jumping from branch to branch. "This can't be real," Jae-hoon muttered to himself. He stood up and walked to the edge of the enclosure. Beyond the force field, he could see other habitats. There was a savanna with elephants and giraffes, a polar region with penguins and seals, and strangest of all, environments he didn't recognize at all, filled with creatures he had never seen before. Jae-hoon placed his hand on the force field. It felt solid, like glass, but it hummed with energy. He was trapped, just like all the other animals. In the distance, he saw a group of Sixnarians walking along a raised platform. They stopped to look at his enclosure, pointing and making notes on their devices. Jae-hoon realized with a chill that he was now an exhibit in the universe's largest zoo. As the shock of his situation began to wear off, Jae-hoon's mind started to race. He was a zoologist, used to studying animals in enclosures. Now he was on the other side of the glass, but unlike the other animals, he had knowledge and skills that might help him. Jae-hoon looked around at his fellow Earth creatures. Then he gazed up at the artificial sky above his enclosure. A small smile crept onto his face. Well, he said to himself, if I'm going to be in a zoo, I might as well make things interesting. Little did the Sixnarians know, they had just added the most troublesome exhibit in the history of their intergalactic zoo. Days passed in the alien zoo, and Jae-hoon started to get used to his new home. He spent his time watching the other animals and the Sixnarians who came to study them. But he wasn't just sitting around. Jae-hoon had a plan. Every morning, a Sixnarian named Min-seo came to watch him. She was a xenobiologist, which means she studied life from other planets. Min-seo was very interested in Jae-hoon because he acted differently from the other animals. One day, Min-seo stood near the force field, making notes on her device. Jae-hoon decided it was time to make contact. He walked up to the edge of his enclosure and waved at her. Min-seo's large eyes blinked in surprise. She looked around to see if anyone else had noticed, then stepped closer to the force field. "Hello," Jae-hoon said clearly. "My name is Jae-hoon. What's yours?" Min-seo's mouth fell open. You can speak?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. Jae-hoon nodded. "Yes, I can, and I have many questions for you, if you're willing to answer them." From that day on, Min-seo spent more and more time at Jae-hoon's enclosure. She asked him all sorts of questions about Earth and humans. Jae-hoon answered her questions, but he also asked his own. He learned about the Sixnarians, their technology, and how the zoo worked. While Min-seo was excited about their talks, Jae-hoon had a secret goal. He was gathering information to plan his escape. He knew he couldn't stay in the zoo forever. As the days went by, Jae-hoon also started to make friends with the other animals in his enclosure. He used his knowledge as a zoologist to understand them better. Soon, he could communicate with the gorillas using simple hand signs. He even figured out how to mimic some of the monkey calls. One afternoon, while Min-seo was visiting, a young gorilla named Bong got into a fight with another gorilla. They were both upset and making loud noises. The Sixnarians watching looked worried. "Should we separate them?" one asked Min-seo. But before she could answer, Jae-hoon walked over to the gorillas. He made some soft sounds and gentle movements with his hands. To everyone's surprise, the gorillas calmed down. They stopped fighting and moved apart. Min-seo was amazed. "How did you do that?" she asked Jae-hoon. He shrugged. "I've learned to understand them. They're not so different from us, really." This event made the Sixnarians even more interested in Jae-hoon. They started to see that humans were not just smart, but also able to connect with other species in unique ways. As Jae-hoon's fame in the zoo grew, he noticed something interesting. The Sixnarians were so busy watching him that they paid less attention to the other parts of his enclosure. This gave him more freedom to explore and plan. One night, when all was quiet, Jae-hoon sat under a tree and looked up at the artificial sky. He thought about Earth and wondered if anyone was looking for him. Then he looked around at the sleeping animals, his new friends. "I can't leave them behind," he whispered to himself. Jae-hoon realized his escape plan had changed. He didn't just want to save himself anymore. He wanted to help all the animals in the zoo. It would be much harder, but Jae-hoon knew it was the right thing to do. The next morning, when Min-seo came for her daily visit, Jae-hoon was ready with a new set of questions. He asked about the other exhibits, the zoo's security systems, and how the Sixnarians took care of so many different animals. Min-seo was happy to share information, not realizing that every answer she gave was another piece of Jae-hoon's escape puzzle. As the day went on, Jae-hoon noticed something new. In a far corner of the zoo, he saw a shimmering force field like his own. But inside, he could see buildings that looked like they were from Earth. "Min Seo," he asked, trying to sound casual, "what's that exhibit over there?" "The one with the buildings." Min Seo looked where he was pointing. "Oh, that's a new exhibit we're working on. It's supposed to show a human city. We have a few of your species there, but they're kept calm with special medicines. They're not as lively as you are." Jaehoon's heart beat faster. There were other humans in the zoo. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to find a way to reach them. That night, as Jaehoon lay on the soft grass of his enclosure, his mind was racing with new plans. He looked up at the stars, which he now knew were just lights on a giant ceiling, and made a promise to himself. "I'm going to get us all out of here," he whispered. "Somehow, someway, we're going home." Little did the Zixnarians know, their prized human exhibit was about to become their biggest problem. Weeks had passed since Jaehoon first arrived at the alien zoo. He had spent his time wisely, watching and learning. Now he was ready to put his plan into action. One morning, Jaehoon woke up earlier than usual. He looked around carefully to make sure no Zixnarians were watching. Then he pulled out a small tool he had made from a broken branch and some vines. Jaehoon walked to the edge of his enclosure where the force field was weakest. He had noticed this spot during his many explorations. Taking a deep breath, he pressed his homemade tool against the force field. At first, nothing happened. But then, slowly, a tiny hole appeared. It was just big enough for Jaehoon to squeeze through. "It worked," he whispered, his heart racing with excitement. Quickly, Jaehoon slipped through the hole. He was out of his enclosure for the first time. But he knew he couldn't celebrate yet. There was still a lot to do. Jaehoon crept along the path between the exhibits. He had to be careful not to be seen by any Zixnarians. As he moved, he used his tool to open small holes in other enclosures. First, he freed the monkeys. They jumped out silently, following Jaehoon's lead. Then came the gorillas, moving quietly despite their size. Soon, a small army of Earth animals was sneaking through the zoo. As they reached the elephant enclosure, Jaehoon faced a new challenge. The force field here was stronger. His tool wasn't working. "What now?" he thought, starting to worry. Then he had an idea. He turned to the largest gorilla and motioned for help. Together, they picked up a heavy rock. On Jaehoon's count, they swung the rock at the force field. Crash! The force field flickered and died. The elephants, sensing freedom, began to walk out. Their heavy footsteps shook the ground. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the zoo. Red lights flashed everywhere. "We've been noticed," Jaehoon said to his animal friends. "Now we run." And run they did. Elephants trumpeted, monkeys screeched, and birds filled the air. It was a stampede unlike anything the zoo had ever seen. Zixnarian guards appeared, trying to stop the escaping animals, but they were overwhelmed by the sheer number and variety of creatures. How do you stop an angry rhino or a leaping tiger? In the chaos, Jaehoon led his group towards the human exhibit he had seen before. As they got closer, he could see people inside, looking confused by all the noise. "We're here to help," Jaehoon shouted. He and the gorillas worked together to break the force field. The people inside stumbled out, still groggy from the medicines the Zixnarians had given them. Jaehoon quickly explained the situation. "We're escaping," he said. "Can you run?" One woman stepped forward. Her eyes were clear and alert. "I'm Su Yun," she said. "I've been pretending to be sedated. I can help." Jaehoon smiled, relieved to have another human ally. "Great. We need to find a way off this ship." Together, Jaehoon and Su Yun led the growing group of humans and animals through the zoo. They were heading for the area where Jaehoon had seen spaceships docking. As they ran, they faced more and more Zixnarian guards. But each time, the escaped animals helped fight them off. Elephants swung their trunks, knocking guards aside. Monkeys leaped onto the Zixnarians' heads, confusing them. Finally, they'd reached the docking bay. Huge spaceships sat ready to launch. "How do we fly one of these?" Su-Yun asked, looking worried. Jae-hoon grinned. "I've been studying them for weeks. I think I can figure it out." They chose the largest ship and began herding the animals inside. It was chaos, with feathers and fur everywhere, but somehow they managed to get everyone on board. Jae-hoon sat in the pilot's seat, looking at the complex controls. Su-Yun stood beside him, ready to help. "Here goes nothing," Jae-hoon said. He pressed a big green button. The ship roared to life. Outside, they could see Zixnarians running towards them, trying to stop the launch. But it was too late. With a great whoosh, the ship lifted off the ground. It burst through the top of the zoo, out into open space. As the stars spread out before them, Jae-hoon and Su-Yun looked at each other. They had done it. They had escaped. But their adventure was far from over. Now, they had to find their way back to Earth, with a ship full of zoo animals and confused humans. As Jae-hoon set a course for home, he couldn't help but laugh. "I bet the Zixnarians never expected this when they put me in their zoo," he said. Behind them, alarms still blared in the alien zoo. The Zixnarians were left to wonder. Had they made a terrible mistake in capturing humans? The stolen spaceship zoomed through the stars, carrying its unusual crew of humans and animals. Inside, Jae-hoon and Su-Yun worked hard to understand the alien controls. "I think I figured out the map system," Su-Yun said, pointing to a glowing screen. "But Earth is so far away." Jae-hoon nodded, his face serious. "We need to find a safe place to land and make a better plan." As they talked, a loud noise came from the back of the ship. They rushed to check on their animal friends. In the large cargo area, they found a strange sight. The elephants, monkeys, and other Earth animals were gathered around something. As Jae-hoon got closer, he gasped. "Are those alien animals?" he asked, eyes wide. Su-Yun nodded slowly. "I think we accidentally rescued some of the other zoo exhibits too." Among the Earth animals were creatures they had never seen before. One looked like a blue giraffe with 6 legs. Another was like a giant butterfly with fur instead of scales. "Hello," Jae-hoon said carefully, stepping forward. "Can any of you understand me?" To his surprise, one of the alien creatures moved towards him. It was about the size of a horse, but looked more like a big orange cloud with eyes. "We understand," the creature said in a soft, whisper-like voice. "We thank you for freeing us." Jae-hoon and Su-Yun looked at each other in shock. Then Jae-hoon smiled. "We're happy to help. I'm Jae-hoon. And this is Su-Yun. We're from a planet called Earth." The cloud-like being rippled, which seemed to be its way of nodding. "I am Zephyr, from the gas planet Eros. The others here are from different worlds too." Over the next hour, Jae-hoon and Su-Yun met the other alien creatures. There was Lumina, a glowing plant-like being from a dark planet. Roxor was a living crystal from a world of gems. Each had been taken from their home for the Zixnarian Zoo. "We need to work together if we want to get home," Su-Yun said to the group. Zephyr floated gently. "Agreed, but the Zixnarians will be looking for us. We need a place to hide and plan." Just then, an alarm started beeping on the ship's control panel. Jae-hoon rushed to check it. "Oh," he said, looking worried. "I think we're being chased." On the ship's screens, they could see 3 smaller, faster ships coming after them. The Zixnarians had sent hunters to catch their escaped exhibits. "What do we do?" Su-Yun asked, trying to stay calm. Jae-hoon looked around at their new alien friends. An idea began to form in his mind. "Everyone," he called out, "we need your help. We all have different skills from our home worlds. If we work together, we might just escape." The alien creatures gathered around, ready to listen. Jae-hoon quickly made a plan. Lumina, the glowing plant being, spread her light, making leaves over the ship's windows. This made it hard for the chasers to see them clearly. Roxor, the crystal creature, stood by the engine room. His hard body could protect it if the hunters tried to shoot at them. Zephyr floated near the ship's air vents. "I can change the air currents," the cloud being whispered. "It might confuse their sensors." Even the earth animals helped. The monkeys, smart and quick, helped push buttons and pull levers. The elephants and rhinos stood ready to block any doors if the hunters got too close. Su Yun sat at the ship's controls, ready to fly. Jae-hoon stood beside her, watching the screens and giving directions. "Here they come," Su Yun shouted as the hunter ships got closer. What happened next was like a crazy dance in space. Su Yun flew the ship up, down, and all around. Luminous lights flashed, making it hard for the hunters to see. Zephyr blew air currents that messed up the hunters' sensors. The hunter ships fired their weapons, but Roxor's crystal body protected the engine. The shots bounced off harmlessly. After what felt like hours, but was really only a few minutes, they had lost the hunters. Everyone on the ship cheered. Jae-hoon looked around at their group, humans, earth animals, and alien beings all working together. He felt proud and hopeful. "We did it, everyone," he said with a big smile. "We're safe for now." Su Yun nodded, also smiling. "And we've made some amazing new friends." As their ship flew deeper into space, Jae-hoon knew they still had a long way to go. But now, they weren't just escapees. They were a team, an alliance of beings from across the universe. Together, they would find a way home. And maybe, just maybe, they would show the Zixnarians that keeping humans, or any intelligent beings, in zoos was a very bad idea. After escaping the Zixnarian hunters, Jae-hoon and Su Yun guided their strange crew to a small uninhabited planet. It was time to rest and make better plans. As they landed, Jae-hoon looked out at the alien world. It had purple grass and orange trees. 2 suns shone in the sky. "Okay, everyone," Jae-hoon said to the group. "We need to set up a camp and figure out our next move." The group of humans, earth animals, and alien creatures spread out to explore their temporary home. Su Yun started organizing teams for different tasks. "Zephyr," she called to the cloud-like being, "can you check the air to make sure it's safe?" Zephyr floated up, spreading out to test the atmosphere. "It's breathable for most of us," the alien whispered back. Meanwhile, Jae-hoon was looking at the spaceship. He frowned, noticing some damage from their escape. "We need to fix the ship," he said to Roxor, the crystal alien. "Can you help me check the engine?" Roxor nodded, his gem-like body sparkling in the sunlight. Together, they went to inspect the damage. As everyone worked, Su Yun noticed something interesting. The humans were quickly adapting to the strange environment. They were coming up with creative solutions to problems the aliens hadn't even thought of yet. For example, when they needed to carry water from a nearby stream, one of the humans quickly made bags from large leaves. Another human figured out how to use the ship's broken parts to create simple tools. Lumina, the glowing plant being, floated over to Su Yun. "Your people are very inventive," she said, sounding impressed. Su Yun smiled. "Humans are good at adapting. We've had to be, to survive on Earth." As the day went on, more examples of human creativity appeared. Jae-hoon used bits of colored rocks to make a map of the star systems they passed. This helped them plan their route home. One of the other humans, a chef named Min-jun, experimented with the alien fruits they found. Soon, he had made a tasty meal that all the different species could enjoy. Even the earth animals were proving useful. The monkeys, guided by Jae-hoon, helped reach high places to repair the ship. The elephants used their strength to move heavy objects. By nightfall, they had a working camp, a partly repaired ship, and a plan starting to form. Gathered around a glowing crystal, which Roxor had provided for light, the group talked about what to do next. "The Zixnarians won't stop looking for us," Zephyr said softly. Jehum nodded. You're right, and we can't keep running forever. Su-Yan looked thoughtful. Maybe we don't have to run. Maybe we can fight back. Everyone turned to look at her in surprise. But the Zixnarians are so advanced, Lumina said, her glow dimming with worry. Su-Yan stood up, her eyes shining with determination. Yes, they have amazing technology, but we have something they don't expect. What's that? Asked Roxor. The human ability to think outside the box, Su-Yan replied. To come up with crazy ideas that just might work. Jehum caught on to what she was saying. He jumped up too. She's right. The Zixnarians think they know everything about us because they studied us in their zoo. But they've never seen what humans can do when we're free and working together. The alien creatures looked at each other, unsure but hopeful. What do you suggest? Zephyr asked. Jehum grinned. I have an idea. It's a bit crazy, but hear me out. Over the next hour, Jehun and Su-Yan outlined a bold plan. They would use the ship's communication system to send a message to other zoos in the galaxy. They would tell their story and ask for help. If we can get other captive species to rebel, Su-Yan explained, the Zixnarians will be too busy to chase us. And Jehun added, we'll show the whole galaxy that keeping intelligent beings in zoos is wrong. The plan was risky. It meant revealing their location. But it was also clever and unexpected, very human traits. As the alien creatures discussed the idea, they began to see the unique strength of their human allies. Humans weren't just smart or strong. They were creative, adaptable, and brave in ways the Zixnarians had never understood. Finally, Zephyr spoke for the group. We agree. Let's do it. Jehun and Su-Yan smiled at each other. Their human advantage, the ability to think differently and take bold risks, might just save them all. As they prepared to send their message to the stars, Jehun thought about how far they'd come. From exhibits in a zoo to leaders of a galactic rebellion, it was a very human journey. The next morning, Jehun and Su-Yan gathered everyone around the spaceship. It was time to send their message to the galaxy. Are we ready? Jehun asked, looking at each of their alien friends. Zephyr floated gently. We are ready. But are you sure this will work? Su-Yan nodded confidently. It has to. We're counting on the spirit of freedom that all beings share. Jehun sat at the ship's controls. He had spent hours figuring out how to use the alien technology to broadcast their message. With a deep breath, he pressed the button. Attention, all captive beings in Zixnarian zoos, he began. We are escaped exhibits, and we have an important message. You are not alone, and you are not meant to be in cages. Join us in our fight for freedom. The message went out, repeating in many languages. Now, all they could do was wait. At first, nothing happened. The group looked at each other nervously. Had their plan failed? Suddenly, the ship's communication panel lit up. Messages started pouring in from all over the galaxy. We hear you. How can we help? We want to be free too. Su-Yan's eyes widened. It's working. Zoos everywhere are responding. As they read the messages, they learned that their broadcast had sparked rebellions in Zixnarian zoos across the galaxy. Exhibits of all kinds were fighting for their freedom. On one planet, a group of telepathic plants had taken control of their zoo's computer systems. On another, aquatic creatures had flooded their entire facility, forcing the Zixnarians to evacuate. Jehun grinned. It's chaos out there. The Zixnarians won't be able to focus on catching us now. But their celebration was cut short. The ship's alarms started blaring. We've been found, Roxor shouted, his crystal body flashing with worry. Outside, they could see a massive Zixnarian ship approaching. It was much bigger than the hunters they had escaped before. Everyone, to your positions, Su-Yan called out. Remember the plan. As the Zixnarian ship got closer, Jehun and his friends put their human-inspired plan into action. First, Lumina used her light-making abilities to create a dazzling display. It looked like their small ship had suddenly grown into a giant, frightening monster. The Zixenarian ship hesitated, confused by what they were seeing. Next, Zephyr floated out into space. The cloud-like alien expanded, surrounding the Zixenarian ship in a thick fog. Now they couldn't see anything at all. Inside the fog, Jae-hoon piloted their ship silently. They had covered the outside with mud from the alien planet, making it invisible to the Zixenarian sensors. As they snuck past the big ship, Roxor used his crystal body to reflect the Zixenarians' own scanning beams back at them. This made it look like there were ships all around, confusing them even more. Meanwhile, Su-yeon was busy sending out fake distress signals. These signals made it sound like zoos on nearby planets were having big problems. She knew the Zixenarians would have to go hell. Just as they planned, the big ship turned away. It sped off towards the false emergencies, leaving Jae-hoon and his friends safe and free. As they watched the Zixenarian ship disappear, everyone cheered. Their crazy plan had worked. "We did it," Jae-hoon shouted, hugging Su-yeon. Zephyr floated back into the ship, looking as happy as a cloud could look. "Your human ideas are strange, but powerful," the alien whispered. Lumina glowed brightly. "I never thought I'd be free. Thank you, humans." But Su-yeon knew they couldn't celebrate for long. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We've started a rebellion, but the Zixenarians will fight back." Jae-hoon nodded seriously. "You're right. We need to be ready for what comes next." As their ship flew deeper into space, Jae-hoon thought about how far they'd come. They had escaped a zoo, made friends with aliens, and started a galactic rebellion, all because humans refused to be kept in cages. He looked at his diverse crew, humans, Earth animals, and alien beings all working together. They were no longer just escaped exhibits. They were freedom fighters. "Whatever happens next," Jae-hoon said to the group, "we'll face it together. And we'll show the galaxy why you should never, ever put humans in a zoo." As they set course for their next adventure, none of them could have guessed just how big their rebellion would become, or how it would change the galaxy forever. Days turned into weeks as Jae-hoon, Su-yeon, and their alien friends continued their journey through space. News of their rebellion spread across the galaxy like wildfire. One morning, as they were planning their next move, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Attention, rebel ship," a deep voice said. "This is the Galactic Council. We wish to speak with you." Everyone looked at each other in surprise. The Galactic Council was the highest authority in the known universe. Jae-hoon took a deep breath and answered, "This is Jae-hoon of Earth. We're listening." What happened next was beyond their wildest dreams. The Galactic Council invited them to attend an emergency meeting. They wanted to hear about the zoo rebellion firsthand. As their ship approached the Council's massive space station, Jae-hoon felt both excited and nervous. "Remember," he said to his friends, "we're here to speak for all the beings kept in zoos. We need to make them understand." The council chamber was enormous. Beings from hundreds of different species sat in tiered seats, all looking at Jae-hoon and his group. A tall, wise-looking alien stood up. "Welcome, rebels," it said. "We have heard of your escape and the chaos you've caused. Please, tell us your story." For the next hour, Jae-hoon and Su-yeon took turns explaining everything. They talked about being abducted, life in the zoo, and their daring escape. They spoke about the friends they made and the rebellion they started. As they finished, the chamber was silent. Then, one by one, other beings stood up to speak. "The Zixenarians took my children for their zoo," one alien cried. "We thought we'd never see them again." Another shouted, "Their zoos have destroyed entire ecosystems on our planet." More and more stories poured out. It seemed the Zixenarians had hurt people across the entire galaxy with their zoos. Finally, the council leader raised a hand for silence. "We have heard enough," it said. "It's clear that these zoos are causing great harm. They must be stopped. Cheers erupted throughout the chamber. Jadhoon and his friends hugged each other, hardly believing what was happening. But then, a new voice boomed through the room. "You can't do this." Everyone turned to see a group of Zixnarians entering the chamber. Their leader, looking angry, marched up to the council. "Our zoos are for education and preservation," the Zixnarian leader argued. "We have the right to continue our work." The room erupted in shouts and arguments. It seemed like everything might fall apart. That's when Su Yan stepped forward. In a clear, strong voice, she said, "May I speak?" The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "I understand the Zixnarians think they're doing good," Su Yan began. "But taking beings from their homes and putting them in cages isn't right, no matter the reason." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of different aliens. "Every species has the right to live free, to grow, to change. In a zoo, that's impossible." Jaehoon joined her. "Instead of zoos, why not create sanctuaries? Places where endangered species can be protected, but still live in their natural habitats." The Galactic Council members nodded, looking impressed. Even some of the Zixnarians seemed to be thinking hard about these ideas. After much discussion, the Council made its decision. All Zixnarian zoos would be closed. The captive beings would be returned to their home planets or to new sanctuaries. And most importantly, a new law was passed. No intelligent species could be held captive for display or study without their consent. It would be known across the galaxy as the Human Freedom Act. As Jaehoon, Su Yan, and their friends prepared to finally return home, they could hardly believe how much had changed. Their adventure had started with a simple escape, but it had ended by changing the laws of the galaxy. Back on Earth, they were welcomed as heroes. Scientists and leaders from around the world wanted to hear about their adventures and learn about the aliens they'd met. Jadhoon and Su Yan often thought back to their time in the zoo. It had been scary and dangerous, but it had also shown them the incredible things humans could do. "You know," Jaehoon said to Su Yan one day, as they watched the sunset, "I bet the Zixnarians never expected all this when they put us in that zoo." Su Yan laughed. "No, they didn't. But that's the thing about humans. We're always full of surprises. And across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, beings of all kinds looked up at the stars and told the story of the humans who were too big, too brave, and too clever to be kept in any zoo. It was the last time anyone in the galaxy ever thought keeping humans in a zoo was a good idea.